Now we'll do some proper introductions. So, good evening, everybody. I'm Amy McLaughlin. I'm the Head of Membership Services and Engagement here at BEDS SU. And for the purposes of the elections, we'll be headed up the elections team with Christina here.
Hello, I'm Christina Cartwright-Riley. I am our Democracy and Engagement Manager. As Amy said, we will be the elections team for this year.
So wherever you see us signing off as the elections team, that's us, that's Amy or Christina. And we do ask you to use the email address elections@beds.ac.uk because then we can both see it and we don't have to ping it back and forth. We can keep on top of that. So we will be the people picking up your emails if you email that inbox. So if you've had an email today, that came from us. So the purpose of this session today, what are we talking about? So we're going to be chatting about manifestos and what a manifesto actually is. I'm going to try and give you some top tips to consider when you're completing them, and warn you about some common mistakes as well. Every year we get one that makes you go, oh no, they're going to be so angry at themselves for doing that. So we'll make sure that we make you aware of some common mistakes as well and can help you out with that. And there'll be lots of chances to ask questions. I'll try and pause at the end of every slide. Like I said, if you've got any questions, pop them in chat and I'll come to them when I get to a reasonable point. So what is a manifesto? So I like to sum this up as your sales pitch, okay? You don't have to think about this being some big political piece. You don't have to put something on the side of a bus. We're not asking you to make billboards to go around the country. This is just your sales pitch. This is you telling student voters what makes you the best person for this role. So we're going to ask you about your skills and experience on this. It'd be great for you to pop in there what it is that you've done in the past that makes you think you can do well in this job. We're going to suggest as well that you talk about what you hope to do for students if elected. Now, the big aim here is to talk about outcomes, what students actually going to see. I've put there, not empty promises. Those of you that have been in the UK for a couple of years might remember a big old bus that was involved in a referendum a couple of years ago that some might now argue is not accurate, the promises that they put on the side of the bus. As much as we refer to you guys as student politicians, we don't expect you to be putting promises on the side of buses and things like that. This isn't about big empty promises. This is about what you're actually going to achieve for students. What do you want to do? So I suppose you could sum this up as quite a lot like a job application. And this year we've made it look a bit more like a job application. So this year it's going to look a bit different. If you've been involved in elections before, or you've seen student elections before, you've voted in them before, you'll see that it's slightly different. And we're going to ask 5 quick questions of every candidate. They're very specific. So we're going to be asking you to target the information that you're giving to students. And we're going to ask you to keep it really short so that we can keep voters interested. We found that if students wrote long paragraphs about what they wanted to do for students, they only got to the good stuff halfway down, and we know that a lot of voters won't have got that far. So we're hoping that keeping these targeted means that you can get your point across to voters much faster than previous. And we really do encourage people to be honest and be true to yourself when you're doing this. There's a lot of people that will make comments about politicians not being particularly honest. And we want to break that trend with student politicians, yeah? This is about you talking to people about who you are, why you'd be great for this job, and why they should vote for you to be on their student executive. We're going to ask you to as well, I'm going to suggest you avoid cramming. I've given you a word limit for a reason, because you're going to keep it short and sweet. You don't have to try and cram everything in there. Yeah. Yes, we're only asking 5 questions at this point, but there's going to be loads of other opportunities for you to tell voters more, and we'll talk to you more about that. Hopefully you've seen that in our candidates guide and things like that. Does that make sense? Everyone happy with that? I see no questions in chat, so I shall continue. So the other thing that I need to make you aware of that's new this year is that we may reproduce questions separately. So I've done us a little mock-up there. We might just say, we might ask one question and we might compare the different bits that each candidate has said on that one question. So we recommend that you don't reference other answers. If you include phrases like, as I said before, or read on to find out more, the bit where you found out more might not be on the same page the students are looking at. So we recommend that you write each answer to those 5 questions as a standalone. Assume that that student has never heard from you before and start from fresh. Can't see any questions, so I'll carry on. So into the questions themselves. We're going to just run through the questions so that you're familiar with them. You can ask questions if you're thinking, what on earth does that mean? This is your opportunity to shout that out and get it across. And again, I'm going to give you some hints and tips for answering them. So our first question on there is going to ask, what has motivated you to apply for this position? So I've popped keywords in red for people there. So what we're talking about here is your motivation or your why. Why do you want to do this in the first place? You're going to have 100 words limit for that one. And the idea of this one is it lets them get a bit of a feel for you as a person. This is, you know, if you were chatting to somebody on campus, which we all wish we could do this year, but it doesn't look like we're going to be able to, what are you going to be telling them about why you want to be doing this job? What we do suggest is that you avoid copying and pasting this from somewhere else. Every year we get somebody and we think that sounds awfully familiar. And when we Google it, we found that somebody wrote it a couple of years ago, or that somebody in another students' union has written it and somebody's just stolen it online. It gets a bit embarrassing. People get found out for this and it goes all over social media that, oh, look at this candidate, they've copied it from somewhere else. So I do recommend that you avoid copying and pasting. This is about, again, like I said, be honest. This is about you putting yourself across to the voters. So nobody else can tell you why you're motivated. So yeah, avoid the copy and paste on that one. Any questions on question 1? A nice simple one to get us started with. Nobody's hanging their head yet going, oh goodness, how am I going to answer that? So I'm going to take this as a good sign and we'll move over. For those of you that joined us a little bit late, feel free to pop questions in chat at any point. You can also try waving at me, but chat's a bit easier for us forming a queue. So question 2. If you could achieve one change for students during your time in office, what would it be? And what outcome would students see? So you've kind of got 2 keywords in that one. You've got the one change and the outcome that students are going to see. When we break that one down a bit, right, so this one's going to have just a 50-word limit, because what we're trying to get out of this one is your headline, right? If we were going to try and sum you up in one sentence, that is what question 2 is. It's summing yourself up in one sentence, the one change that you could do. If you could do nothing else, if you only got 3 days on the job for some reason, what would you do in those 3 days? What would be the one change that you were fighting for? We ask you to focus on the outcome here, because that helps students see what's in it for them. When we ask students to vote, one of the first things they always go is, but why? What's in it for me? What am I going to get out of this? This is your opportunity to tell them exactly what they're going to get out of voting for you. So tell them what success is going to look like. If you get into this post and you get the job done, what is success going to look like for them at the end of it? So I'd avoid big sweeping statements like, I want to improve life for everyone at Beds, because what does that mean? Improve what aspect of my life? One student might have a problem with access to the library, whereas another student might have a problem with getting to and from campus. Changing life for everyone at Beds is a huge thing, and students are likely to say, I don't think you understand what my problem is, so I'm not sure this one's for me. Again, I'd avoid copying and pasting from somewhere else as well. This is one that people historically copy and paste from other unions, and it gets them in a bit of a sticky situation when students start sending their questions in for candidates and people then can't give the information about what they meant about it because they stole it from somewhere else. So avoid doing that where you can. Any questions on question 2? There's a very important 50 words for you on this one. So just 50 words, but hopefully in those 50 words, you can really sum up what you're going to do, what the big change would be at the end of your time in office. Question 3. So this should be familiar if you've applied for a job before. Something like, what are your top 2 skills that you will put to good use in this role? What have you achieved with these skills in the past? So really open question here for you to talk about whatever you're skilled in and however that fits into things. If we break that down, so you're going to get 200 words for this one. So we're saying roughly 100 words per skill for you to talk about the skill. And we suggest you make it specific to the role that you're applying for. So obviously we've got 2 roles that are available, the co-president role and the co-vice president role. And there are differences in sort of their focus. The co-president role is very much focused on the educational experience of UOB, the sort of bread and butter that we're all here for. We're all here for the education, to get a qualification at the end of it. Whereas the co-vice president role for campus experience and equality It's more about all the stuff around the edges, all of the other experiences that you get during your time at uni and how that sort of fits into your experience. So whether that's getting involved in societies, improving your transferable skills, the equality of experience across our multiple campuses, all of those sorts of bits come under the co-vice president role. So you want to highlight the skills that make you better for one than the other. I know some of you guys on the call are still undecided because I sent you both job descriptions earlier today to have a look at. So you might not be able to answer this one until you've decided which role you want to go for, and it might take a bit of time for you to sort that one out in your head. But maybe think about this. Well, actually, which skills have I got that suit these roles better? Which do I think I'll be better at? Check out the job descriptions for clues. In the job descriptions, we've listed skills that would be useful. We've listed what an ideal candidate would bring to the table. So maybe you might like to highlight some of your skills that make you the ideal candidate. So if you're no good at working out what I'm good at, I know I'm terrible at that selling yourself bit of it. You might want to use the job descriptions to get some hints and tips there. On this one, I'd say avoid limiting yourself to examples just from UOB or just from the SU. So you might be a course rep and you might have got some skills from doing that for your course, but that might not be your best example of, I don't know, your negotiating skills. You might have actually done some negotiating in a local community group that you're a part of. And actually you might have something bigger to show for that. So don't feel that you have to use the UOB or the BEDS-SU example. Obviously we love it when you do use our BEDS-SU examples, but you don't have to use those. Think about like the broad range of experience that you can bring to this and all of the huge amount of stuff that you've done, skills that you've developed outside of uni as well. And we recommend using the STAR method for this. I'm hoping some people have heard of this one. This is a good one just generally, if ever you find yourself applying for other jobs in the future as well. So STAR stands for, and I appreciate this might be a bit small if someone's viewing on their phone, so we'll make sure the recording's online later for you to have a closer look at it. But it asks you to look at 4 elements. So when you're talking about your skill, you want to talk about the situation you were in, the task you were undertaking, the action that you went through, whatever it was that you did, how you applied that skill, and the result that that got for you. So you've got to do that in 100 words, which is a challenge. You have to keep a succinct story, a very discrete example that fits in there. But this is a tried and tested method that a lot of career services around the country will tell you about. And it sums up, if you get that into 100 words, that's a really punchy statement that says, like, I've got this skill and this is how I've used it in the past. So you might want to think about using the STAR method for there. I still see no questions in chat. Gonna have a quick scroll through your lovely faces and see if there's anyone else there. No, we're good. Cool. You might also want to use the STAR method for question 4. So question 4 asks you what experience you have that you will put into good use in this role. So we've just asked about those skills. Now we're talking about sort of the experience that you have. So this might be a good point to say, I've run a society committee here, or I ran projects with my church group in the community. Could be any sort of experience. Again, I've said avoid limiting yourself here. Think about all that stuff you do outside of uni as well. 100-word limit for this one. And we suggest again that you make it relevant to the role you're applying for. If you can distinguish why that experience is particularly good for the role that you want to go for. Pause for questions. Smashing. Right. Finally, before we stop and everyone can throw in all of their questions all into the mix, is question 5. So question 5 is a big one and very new for this year. So some of these questions you will have been asked in previous years. This one's a bit different. So question 5 is a big one. Bear with me on this one. Research shows that some student groups face barriers in their student experience as a result of their background or circumstances. Choose one group that you feel faces disadvantage in their experience and suggest a change you would like to see for their benefit. So this is kind of linked back to question 2, where I said, if you're only in the job for 3 days, what one change you go for? Now, we often have people come back to us and say that our officers don't represent everyone. So I might say, well, I'm a mature student and most of the executive officers are young, so they can't represent me. Now, we don't necessarily believe that embeds as you. You know, we work in a representative democracy, and we believe that a good representative can get to know the issues that other students have. They can gather that feedback from across the board and can actually use that to move forward and make change on behalf of those student groups, really amplify that voice and make sure that voice gets into the right rooms, because you'll be in the right rooms. So you've got to get that voice to get it out there. So what this is an answer to those students who say, I don't think executive officers really represent me. This is your opportunity to show that you understand a range of student groups out there, or that you understand one particular student group. In this case, you're going to choose one group. And this is what you understand of their experience, and this is what you do to make life better for them. So this is kind of question 2, but walking in someone else's shoes. So we've suggested some groups. This list is not exhaustive. So if there's another group that you think faces barriers in their student experience, in their experience of higher education, then you go with that. That is fine. We've just suggested a range of groups here. So we suggested mature students might face barriers. Student parents might face barriers. I think that's one that probably we're all seeing at the moment. We can appreciate if people are homeschooling during a pandemic, that's creating a bit of a barrier to getting involved in education. Students with disabilities could face barriers. We know that BAME students face barriers, and you might want to break that down. So we use the term BAME here to be all students of an ethnic minority, but you might want to turn around and say, well, actually, I think that Black African students maybe face a different disadvantage to other ethnic minority students, and you might want to go with one of those examples. We also talk about LGBTQ+ students. That's a bit of a mouthful. I appreciate you won't necessarily know what all of those letters stand for. So that is lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, questioning, and other students. So there's a huge number of student groups whereby your sexuality is not heterosexual. Again, you might want to choose just one of those groups and talk about how you understand their experience of higher education and how you'd like to see that progressed. So the idea of this question is you choose one of those groups, and then you're going to write your 100 words, 100-word limit on this one, about how you're going to make their life better. You know, if you could make one change for them, what would it be? This question isn't about you. This question is about those students, yeah? This question is about you saying how you can work for those students and how you will represent them. So this is about you proving how much you understand that their experience is different. And you might not know. You might have just heard me say that question and gone, oh, I don't have the foggiest, I wouldn't know where to start. That's fine. That's all part of this experience. And as a representative, you can't know all of them from the outset. That's why you'll spend your year talking to students, trying to understand their experience. So you might have to do a bit of research on this one. That research might just be talking to other students. That research might be reaching out to ask us what we've done in the past, what sort of work is going on within the union. We can tell you all of that stuff. You might want to research what other unions do and other things that are out there. There's a huge amount of research for a number of these groups where they'll be talking about how things are different for those student groups. Huge amount online that you can look into. So you might have to do a bit of research for this question. The one thing I would suggest for the avoid one on this one is avoid stereotyping. Example of that one would be students with disabilities, we just said there. If you turn around and say, well, we need more lifts and ramps, that's suggesting that all students with disabilities have a physical impairment and maybe struggle with stairs. And obviously, not all students with disabilities do have a physical impairment. There want to be students with other impairments that affect the way that they live their life and the way that they experience higher education. So I'd avoid stereotypes like that if you can. That is all of our questions for this. Have anybody's got any questions? I will pause. I'm happy to go back now. We've made good time because nobody's asked any questions yet. So we've now got plenty of time for you to ask whatever questions. What I'm also happy to do, if people would be more comfortable, is I'll finish up on my final slide that gives you a brief overview of the key dates, and then we can turn off record. If people don't want their questions recorded, we can do that as well. I see some nods to that. Okay, cool. So I will just round up then by saying that is all a manifesto is. So we've tried to take some of the guesswork out of it this year and go through some bits. So that's why we've gone with this 5-question setup this year. And we're really hoping that it makes life easier for voters as well when it comes to looking at what you all stand for and who they're going to vote for. I'm just going to end with a quick refresher of some key dates you need to know. So hopefully you've found all of this on the website by now. If you haven't, we'll make sure that link goes out to you again at the end. But your deadline for this manifesto is Wednesday, the 24th of Feb. So you've got 2 weeks now to think about it. It has to be with us by 5 o'clock. If we do not have your manifesto before 5 o'clock, you will not be a candidate in this year's elections. It's a very strict deadline that we have to stick to this one. So I think all of the names in the call, I think we've heard from all of you in a form already. So you've made the first step. This is the next step, submitting your manifesto to us. On the 24th of Feb, we also have the candidates briefing. Sorry, I'm missing the time off that. I will come to Christina for an answer on that one in a second. Candidates briefing is mandatory, and we really recommend you come to it, because what we're going to do is basically this again, but for the next stage of the election. So we'll be talking to you about the candidate rules, the rules that govern our election. If you do break the rules, you can be disqualified from the election. So it's quite a big deal, and we need you to know those rules. We'll talk to you about the money that you can get back from us for your campaigning. So you will get a budget from us that you can spend on your campaigning, and we will be giving that money back to you, because we don't want you to end up out of pocket because you're putting yourself forward in our elections. This is an awesome opportunity, and we don't want people to not take the opportunity because they might end up out of pocket. So we do reimburse you, and we'll tell you more about that on the 24th. We'll also run through again more of the stuff about during voting, how things can go on. We'll talk you through the question time and what to expect of that. So that's sort of your next big date, and we'll see you all again then for sure. Christina, what time am I on the 24th?
5 o'clock on the 24th.
Lovely. And if anyone can't make it on the 24th, we do have a catch-up session on the 25th at 1 o'clock, I want to say. I'm getting a nod. I remembered that one. So we'll see you again then for sure. Candidate filming, in case you haven't read that far through the email that I sent earlier, candidate filming, we get a professional videographer to film you. Now, normally I'd love to stick you in front of a fancy camera crew on campus. Obviously, we can't do that this year, but we do have some very clever ideas for how we can do that online. So you will join our videographer online, and they will talk you through how to do that. You'll be recording just a sort of 20 to 30 second clip of yourself, sort of telling people why you want to vote, why they should vote for you. And then we'll be creating some more fun stuff with you as well. So we're going to be doing some personalized gifts for you and some other sort of short content that not only will we use to promote you during elections, but you will have access to that content as well, so that you can promote yourself during elections. So you're getting a professional videographer for free. He'll be with us on the 24th and 25th, but you must pre-book for that one. So the link was in the emails that you've had already. Again, you can also do that through the Candidates Hub. The link to their Candidates Hub is at the bottom of the screen there. But do shout if you can't find that, and we will make sure that you book your slot with us. And then we will be filming question time on the 1st of March for co-presidents and the 2nd of March for co-vice presidents. We're still finalising what that's going to look like, and we'll let you know as soon as we do, so that you can prep for that. Christina will also be running a session on how to prep for that. So again, you can come back and see our lovely faces, and we'll chat you through that one. Other dates you might be interested in then is voting opening on the 8th of March and voting closing on the 24th of March. Again, in the candidates briefing, we'll talk you through what we'll be doing during that time, and we'll discuss with you some ideas of what you might like to do during that time. Don't worry, you don't have to spend 2.5 weeks constantly campaigning. We've got a plan to help you balance that across the time. And we'll also set you up with an election buddy to help you out during that time as well. Results will be announced as long as nothing goes wrong. Results will be announced on Friday, the 26th of March. Any questions? Smashing. Well, if we've got no other questions for camera, I'm going to sign off for now. We will stop recording, and then maybe we'll take some time with everyone on the call just to have a quick chat amongst ourselves whilst we're all together. Make the most of that.